I've just made a mistake, and I realized this. Because I missed a big change. I ignored it. All effects that benefit the player when you strike the foe from the flank or behind now always apply when you're hitting a Defiant foe. This is actually massive for any class that uses flanking. So Ranger with skirmishing, Thief with, front stab, right? Front stab, back stab, and just, critical strikes in general is really big. Thief runes, that applies to a multiple amount of DPS classes, of course. Right, Condi Soul Beast loves this as well. Thief rune stocks are up big time because you can always activate them for free now. Very high value. I'm not totally sure how I feel about this, because it's kind of like saying, well, you know that thing where you had to do a thing to get a payoff? Well, now you don't have to do it. You just get it for free, which is weird, I think. I'm not sure if I like it. It definitely improves the playability of some of these builds, but I'm not sure if this is the way to go about it. I think it would maybe better to make them less reliant on flanking, and the flanking stuff like less game-changing, and like, oh, if you can't flank, you're screwed, rather than saying, you just get it for free. But I guess it's one way of doing it, I guess. It's one way of doing it. It certainly makes, stacking on a Thief a lot easier, right? Stacking on a Ranger a lot easier. Thief runes a lot easier to manage, right? Especially when the boss kind of like wiggles around a whole lot. But really great for like world bosses and, raid bosses and stuff like that, I guess. Fractal bosses and so on. I don't know, guys. I'm not sure how I feel about it, to be honest. It is a change that has happened in the game. Right then, it's time to talk about medium armor classes. We've got Engineer, we have got Thief, and we have got Ranger. We got some big stuff here, actually. This is a real zany change. Engineer, Scrapper now generates quickness with combo fields. Druid, guess what? Now has Alacrity baked into it, as opposed to having the weird spirit stuff going on, and big rework on spirits. We've got Thief giving AoE barrier, AoE Alacrity, AoE boons, all that kind of fantastic stuff. And guess what? We're even going crazy here. We've got quickness Untamed. That is right, gamers, okay? We've got it all. Like, we've got boons galore here, right? Everyone's doing everything these days. But anyway, let's leap into it right now by looking at some of the stuff going on with Engineer. So first little change, and this is an interesting one. We actually have Mechanical Genius being reworked on Mechanist. This trait has been reworked. Instead of the mech incurring a stat reduction penalty, command skills now take longer to recharge if activated, while the mech is farther than a range of 360 away from the Engineer. Because I actually do think that's a little stingy, right? 360 is a very small radius, actually. I could see that maybe going up to 600, to be honest. Because I think their main goal is that you don't want... the thing that's really good about Mechanist right now, both the power and especially the heal mech, is that you can kind of be in two places at once, right? You can be completely on the other side of the map and your mech is still doing its thing very effectively at the same time. But 360 is like really, really close, right? You're going to have to be right up next to it in order to make sure that happens, which I get it, right? That they're trying to address this issue that mech has with its design. I think this will be less frustrating than the stat thing as well, for sure. And, that's pretty good, I guess, in that regard. And we'll have to see how this one plays out. But I think this actually is a step in the right direction. I think it will be less frustrating. Elephant in the room is that the big annoying thing about mech is kind of the AI, right? The AI is just kind of annoying, especially in certain instance content. It will just kind of wander off sometimes, which is annoying, right? And you really have to be kind of very sharp on your F6 and F7 keybinds, right? To make sure that you would like, get back in there, right? Stop going over there, get in there, run in, all that, especially on larger arenas, all that kind of stuff there as well. But yeah, we'll have to see what the actual cooldown reduction penalty is. I suspect it might be kind of in the direction of like 33%, maybe even 50%. 50% might be a little bit too harsh. We'll have to see what it's going to be, to see how impactful this is going to be, how important it is. But I think that this does actually make the usability slightly higher. It means that you just have to remember, right, I've got to go next to my mech, use the skills, then I can rotate out. You move in, move out, etc., 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 right? So I get it. That kind of makes sense to me. I think this will probably be a bit more fun to use. So Mech Core, Barrier Engine. Base barrier and healing power coefficient from the automatic pulses are no longer split between, and will use the PvP and world versus world values in PvE as well. Basically, what are they doing here? And Barrier Burst. Base barrier goes up, and the healing coefficient goes up. So what's going on here? They want to make mech less passive. Good, right? I think that's a positive change. So actively using your barrier well is going to be rewarded because it's now significantly stronger, by the way. It's a lot more barrier if you actively use this well and you use it skillfully. And the passive barrier, which was just kind of like uninteractive and not super fun, although quite strong, of course, is now going down in PvE. Yeah, I think that is very, 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 very fair in that regard. Very fair. Okay, and let's go ahead and go through all of the other NG stuff. Next up is going to be the Quickness Scrapper change. Here we go. And this is fun. Look at this. Look at this. Kinetic Accelerators. This trait has been reworked. Apply boons to nearby allies when you successfully combo with a blast or leap finisher. Your function gyro is now a blast finisher. I'm actually kind of surprised they went this direction because they kind of purged all of combo synergy from Scrapper, and now they're kind of bringing it back a little bit. So you give AoE quickness when you use a leap or a blast. And of course, your function gyro, your blast gyro are blasts. And you can put down your lightning fields, right, to go ahead and interact through those things. This is actually really fun and dynamic. I think this is cool. Now, the one thing I'm not a fan of here is using function gyro as part of the rotation. And you might say, yeah, Teapot, you already did that. I agree, but I didn't approve of it now, and I don't approve of it then, right? Either. I really like the idea of Scrapper having this kind of cool utility thing that it can do with this revive, like, pew, send out the gyro and it reses people. I'm not a huge fan of that being part of your boon application rotation. I'd much rather see it kind of integrated into other parts of the build. However, I do really like the idea that you're kind of, applying quickness with your rotation, if that makes any sense. So instead of kind of having it like, oh, I'm going to use these skills off cooldown to give quickness, it's like it's kind of baked into your rotation now. This does mean that you're almost certainly going to be using Hammer 3, which is a bit awkward because it isn't animation lock, but it does evade, so there is that, to give quickness to get those double finishes, right, through your lightning field, right, on your Hammer 5 maybe, or one of your gyros, for example, but still pretty interesting. What's also really cool about this, one, is that this, again, really frees up the utility slots, right, on your Scrapper. It means that you don't have to just have a billion gyros to apply these boons. You can still have that super speed access if you want to, and if you want to kind of package that into your build to have all of that super speed uptime on your allies, but it really opens the door to Scrapper being able to fit in a lot of that juicy engineer utility, or of course potentially some more damage as well to kind of like customize your build to the encounter. And kind of on that note, this does kind of improve stability access for Scrapper. It means you can take in Bulwark Gyro and take stability or your Reflect Bubble, or rather your Projectile Block Bubble, very, very easily. It means you can even take Elixir B for even more stability if you wanted to there. Like there's a lot of flexibility here, I think, that is very, very promising, I think, for our Quickness Scrapper fans. People are going to say, what about Heal Scrapper? Not impressed. I don't think Heal Scrapper is... I don't think it's good, guys. And I still think it's still not going to be good. There it is. We ripped the Band-Aid off. There it is. Okay, and now on to the general NG changes. And you can see there's a lot of general NG changes. Although, I'll give you a bit of a spoiler. Most of these changes are basically, hey guys, you get the cooldown reduction without taking the Elixir trait. Yeah. That's it, right? HGH. No longer reduces the cooldown of Elixir skills. Still a good trait, by the way, because you get the duration increase and the might application. But now all of our glorious elixirs actually have significantly lower cooldowns just across the board as well. And what's really cool is that all of the supportive elixirs, now what these do is they will actually be unblockable, which is actually really nice because in areas where there's a lot of projectile hate, world versus world, to a lesser extent PvP, you would not be able to use these skills because they would just get, blocked, right? And then they just get destroyed, which kind of sucks, right? So now your Elixir S is unblockable, Elixir Shell is unblockable, Elixir U Toss is unblockable, Elixir C Toss is unblockable as well, with a very short cooldown here as well. You can see that converts conditions into boons. I can very easily see some of this stuff actually start to see a little bit of play. I think notably Elixir B here. This gives stability guaranteed on the toss. It's a bit weird that it kind of gives it gives a random boon when you throw this down. It's a little bit of a strange one there, but still, having that kind of on-demand stability axis is pretty good. The radius is very low. Maybe that should be improved. It's, 180 radius, but still, pretty nifty skill there. And I think some of these elixirs can actually be very powerful if you're looking to make kind of like almost like a solo build, right? So you can like self-boon yourself pretty well, highly effectively with these like slightly lower cooldowns. So that could be potentially interesting if you want to go in that direction. But mostly targeted, trying to give some options to support Scrapper in World versus World is where they want to go. Oh, with this one. Overall, and a few changes here as well. Healing goes down on Med Blaster a little bit. The range is lower, and the boon cap, like extra healing, is going down, limited to 4. That's actually kind of significant. You have a lot of boons in World versus World. And the apparently the Telegraph is being improved too. Nice. However, to compensate for this, you're getting a lot more healing on Super Elixir and Fumigate. So you kind of have more healing on the Elixir and more Condi Cleansers. There you go. This is probably to kind of compensate some of the nerfs that Scrapper's had. Scrapper got hit pretty hard with the nerfs to kind of like dislodge it from the meta game, like overall the super speed stuff. And that does continue. A little bit more super speed application reduction in World versus World with speed of synergy going down. Well, still a lot of super speed when you use that healing skill, tool belt skill. To give yourself a lot of super speed, to give allies super speed when you use your heal skill. Just toning that out a little bit more to kind of keep it in line. Make sure that Scrapper is not getting out of hand, right? Not getting out of control, guys. Being able to cap super speed on yourself, maybe a little bit questionable, right? Like maybe we don't need that. Maybe we don't really want that in the game overall. This isn't here in the notes, but throw mine cooldown is actually going down in PvE as well, which is kind of nice. It's like you can throw your mine a little bit more. It's actually a really powerful skill for engineer, just in general, actually, because it removes boons, it does damage, it CCs. It's everything you want in an ability, okay? You also use it on a lot of builds, actually. You can use it on Scrapper, you could use it on Mechanist, right? You can use it on a Hollow as well. Really great skill. Cool direction happening there. Not just in World versus World. Battering Ram cooldown goes down in PvE too. That's also pretty nifty. And AED. Again, this Gadgeteer trait, you don't have that cool direction, so you have a baseline reduction literally everywhere. There it is. For some reason, they actually didn't reduce the cooldowns of the toolkit everywhere. It's only in PvE. They're a little bit worried about the magnet in in PvP, which I think is understandable. A lot of these skills are very good. Most notably the block, right? Having like a very short cooldown block up time, having like a lot of CC, a lot of burst damage kind of baked in is definitely a little bit spooky. However, Power Wrench, look at this. You have to give up Static Discharge, which is questionable. But look, every time you dodge, you reduce your cooldown on your elite skill by 3 seconds in PvP and World versus World. That's kind of fun, right? That's certainly a fun trait. Is that going to see any play? Not sure about that one, to be honest. I'm not sure if you care about your elite skill that much. Particularly seeing as, like, Prime Light Beam has a very short cooldown now in PvP, doesn't it? Which maybe you'd play this on a Hollow Smith build or something like that. I don't know. It's a little bit of an interesting one in this regard. But, it's certainly a really fun trait. Has a lot of interestingness going on there. But we'll see how that one actually plays out after the patch actually has. But yeah, a lot of cooldown reductions, blah, 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 blah. I'm not gonna lie, there's a lot of patch notes here, guys. But overall, what they are trying to do here is they want to make it not feel bad to pick an ability without the trait. And this makes a lot of sense. Quite a lot of time, historically, you kind of get locked in to picking certain traits, or you kind of you're locked into picking a trait because you want to play a certain ability, and they're trying to remove that a little bit. So the skills are kind of good on their own, and then the trait enhances them, right? And that's kind of the direction we're going here. So I think there's a lot of options with a lot of builds, which will be which is good, right? I think that's a pretty good idea. But again, NGs, you have successfully dodged the nerf bat, and now you've got cool combo fields as well on your kinetic accelerators. We'll have to see the duration on this, by the way, too, because the rotation for this will be quite interesting. So looking at the duration, how much quickness is going to be applied is really important to actually look at here to make sure that you can still maintain it comfortably. Also looking at the radius and so on. Probably 360 like gyros. So it should work out pretty fine. So NGs, you guys are good to go. You guys are good to go. Some slight kind of buff nerfs to mech. I think that a well-played mech might even be slightly more value if you play well with Heal Mechanist, for example. which is kind of nice. So yeah, look forward to that. And DPS Scrapper, Quickness Scrapper, still looking good. World versus World Scrapper, a little bit of a rebalance here. A bit more Condi Cleanse, slightly more effective healing on your Super Elixir, but less on the auto attack. So listen, you're getting some numbers moved around, but you know what? It's still good. Enjoy it. All right. And now after that little warm-up, that's a warm-up, guys. We all know it. That's a warm-up. Let's talk about some stuff where some stuff really changed, okay? Let's talk about Ranger. Woof. And just for a bit of a preview. Oh, yeah. We've got a lot. We've got a lot of changes. We've got Alacrity Druid. We've got DPS Druid, DPS Condi Druid to be more specific. We have got Fervent Force getting reworked into Let Loose. You're just going to just completely unleash all over the place. Spirits are getting reworked. Sword is getting reworked. Nature Magic is getting reworked. Goodness me. We have gone hard on ArenaNet, on Ranger this time. Like, this is the patch of the Ranger right now, guys. Here we go. So, first of all, Sword is kind of being given an identity. I mean, look, this is one of the weapons that's been reworked like 50 times, and now here comes another one. It's going to be a very high mobility power weapon. That's basically what they want this this weapon to be. As Pounce is replacing Monarch's Leap, and now you just kind of leap forwards and gain vigor. And if you hit someone who's got a snare on them, they will actually take, I believe, 20% more damage. So this could potentially even be a really solid weapon in PvE too. Again, you know, power damage. We love that stuff. Axe is kind of weird on Ranger right now. Whereas, you know, you just run Axe on like power builds and Condi builds. You just run Axe everywhere. It's a pretty good weapon. So we'll see if Sword kind of gets into the mix here too. Serpent Strike has also been reworked again. This skill has been moved to the third slot and has been reworked. You will now leap to your target while evading, applying poison and cripple on hit. This skill will immobilize instead of cripple if the target is movement impaired or disabled. I think there's actually some pretty interesting things going on here with PvP as well with this rework. I think I can see these kind of crazy high mobility Ranger builds maybe coming out of the woodwork. The current weapon kit is very compelling. For Ranger in PvP, though, kind of like the really good old, like, longbow greatsword combo has been very popular for a very long time, for good reason. It's obviously extremely effective in these kind of roaming style builds, right, across the board. So we'll have to see if Sword can kind of muscle in some way. Might be a little bit tricky to do so, but we'll see. Now moving on to the real big source, guys. The real big source. Let's take a look. We'll take a look. Spirits have been reworked. A spirit will now grant an initial effect when summoned, slam the ground for a secondary effect, then grant boons to nearby allies for a period of time. Let's see if it lists them off here. It doesn't, but fortunately, I think I remember them. So, number 1, Water Spirit, I believe, is going to apply Resolution. Frost Spirit. Oh, no, Frost Spirit. Frost Spirit was Resistance. Earth Spirit is actually Aegis, which is pretty cool, and Protection. Sun Spirit was Might. Water was Vigor. And then I think Frost was Resolution and Resistance, I think. So a lot of diversity in the type of effects that you can apply. I think the really notable thing about this is that Druid is no longer locked into having loads of spirits. So you can basically pick what spirits you want to take for utility, and then you can have loads of flexibility. Because bear in mind, you have a lot of good skills on Ranger, especially if you're playing Druid. The glyphs are quite powerful, and you've just not been able to fit them all in, right? Because you've been bound to having at least 3 spirits to apply Alacrity, which honestly is kind of annoying right off the bat. But oh yeah, that's right, gamers. Now, Grace of the Land gives Alacrity instead of Might, and some of the other CA abilities give Might as a baseline. Rejuvenating Tides and Natural Convergence grant Might to everyone. So you basically get your Might for free, and Grace of the Land now gives Alacrity. And that will be at range as well, by the way, gamers. So you can now range give Alacrity instead of having to go in, spam your spirits, then move out. Leaving your spirits and other utility skills, like Protect Me, like Glyph of Equality, right? Search and Rescue, for example. Man, what am I trying to think of here? There's some really good ones. You can use your Earth Spirit to give Aegis. You can use your Sun Spirit for additional Might. You can use... oh, man, there's a really good one. I can't think of it. This is bad. I have felt. Glyph of Unity. Glyph of Unity for a massive heal that you can apply to nearby, nearby allies and have that absolutely, outrageous healing. It is pretty damn epic. The possibilities for Ranger, for Druid, is truly unlimited. I really think, and yeah, Healing Spring cooldown goes down as well, by the way. Just baseline, so you can use that for regeneration. You can use Nature Spirit for regeneration. You can use the Glyph of the Elite skill to give stability instead. Now you also heal allies you give regeneration to with Windborne Notes with the Warhorn trait. Right, oh man. Dude, this is some big stuff. We got some epic stuff. Oh yeah, by the way, guys, here's a fun one. Check this out. You now just flat out get 20% better regeneration from Lingering Magic on Druid. Druid is insane, right? This build is going to be absolute beast mode, Giga Chad, insane busto mode. Protect Me cooldown goes down, Sikkim cooldown is going down, Search and Rescue cooldown is going down. Oh man, Druid is going to be hot, guys, in that next patch. You love to see it. You absolutely love to see it. And of course, in Nature's Magic, you have a few options here in the Grandmaster as well, which is also pretty interesting, I think. Protective Ward, you cast Lesser Guard when you swap pets. That's basically going to absorb damage from nearby allies, I presume, and then kind of put it onto the pet for a short duration. Invigorating Bond now uses your healing power and heals around the Ranger and gives Prot and Vigor. And then Nature's Vengeance has been reworked. Spiritual Slam the ground a second time before disappearing. So you basically double up. You'll get a double Aegis, I believe, on this, for example. On your Stone Spirit. Honestly, all three of these are actually pretty compelling, and I think could actually have their own usages potentially. They all seem quite nifty in their own right. One thing that's quite notable here, guys, I really think this makes Druid a lot better in Fractals. And that's a big deal. Shifting the Fractal meta is one of the most important things to happen, because now Druid has God level CC, amazing healing, relatively okay Aegis access, much better stability access than before because you get stability out of CA on Glyph of Equality, and of course you have your Elite Glyph of Stability as well. This is a very significant change because attacking the Fractal meta is much more important than attacking the Raid meta, because the Fractal meta typically influences the Raid and Strike mission meta because everyone wants to do Fractals, and the Fractal meta is a bit more strict in a sense because of Aegis and Stability. So making Aegis and Stability a lot more accessible to other builds is really, really important here for this. Oh yeah, Cosmic Ray. Dude, Cosmic Ray radius goes up the auto attack, so it's easier to heal people with this now. Natural Mender, you get more life force generation. Oh man, dude, they went hard on Ranger this patch. They really, really did. Oh, goodness me. Yeah, Lingering Light. This trait is this could be really wild. I think this is a world versus world trait, I think. Potentially. This trait no longer grants increased outgoing healing after exiting CA. Instead, it reduces the recharge of CA every time another player is healed by your CA skills. This could be really exciting in PvP. I think really exciting in world versus world, as you're just going to have just pretty epic uptime of epic Condi Cleanse, massive healing. Also, I gotta point this out. You guys are never gonna unsee this. Notice how Lingering Light's icon is an actual light bulb with a lampshade. Just want to point that out, just so you guys know what this icon actually is. Look at it. I love this. There's a lot of Ranger ones like this, right? You have light on your feet, right? Is like an actual foot. And most dangerous game in skirmishing is Guild Wars 2 icon as well. It's really fun. I love stuff like that. Big fan. Keep it up, ain't it? I like it. I enjoy it. I am amused. You have amused me. You win. Yeah, Natural Stride, right? Is like a leg as well. It's really good. I like it. Speaking of Natural Stride, that trait is also pretty juicy. You deal increased damage and take reduced damage for a period of time after entering or exiting CA. This kind of pans out to, even on a heal Druid build, you could just have permanent 10% damage reduction almost. Right, because it's 10%. And on a Condi Druid, which we'll talk about basically now, you're just going to have 10% more damage here to kind of complement this build. And of course, with Condi Druid, you can be like an Alacrity Condi Druid, so you give Alacrity, or you could even go down the full DPS route and just like pump as hard as you possibly can. Yeah. So we will see about that. Very, very strong in terms of this. Like, it will be a very high uptime. I don't think it's quite permanent, actually, but it will be like a good amount of uptime of just taking reduced damage and dealing increased damage. Quite nice. I absolutely love to see it. So really exciting stuff here for Ranger, in my opinion. Very, 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 very exciting stuff for Ranger. An instinctive reaction. You no longer, when you get struck, you just give regen when you use a healing skill. That's also somewhat interesting, I think, actually, in that regard. Because this means you can potentially use it as a source of regen. I don't think Druid really struggles on regen. And, I don't know. We'll see. A bit of a just overall damage buff as well with Farsighted. So it looks like you just get 10% minimum bonus damage on Farsight as well. Wow. I mean, okay. There you go. Wait, isn't it just always 10% now? Wait, what even is this? Wait, what? What does this even mean now? Does it go from 10 to 15% now if you're really far away? I guess maybe that's how it works, or something like that, in that type of direction. That seems to maybe the case. I like it. Yeah, I think that goes over a lot of that stuff. Now let's talk about Condi Druid. So this is fun. I kind of feel they should have gone this way with Scourge. So check this out. When you take the trait, what trait is it called? Yeah, Eclipse. Here we go. So Ancient Seeds is gone. Good. That was unfun trash. Your Celestial Avatar abilities inflict conditions on enemies. So this basically turns your Celestial Avatar into like a damage form, kind of. It does still have the regular effects, right? So you still have support baked in there, and you're still able to do that. But you're also going to be doing damage at the same time. You know, you're applying poison on your seed attack, your vulnerability on the Cosmic Ray, burning on the 5th skill, right? I believe it's immobilize on Lunar Impact, right? Like all this kind of crazy stuff. There should be some decent damage potential here. Actually, on this setup here, for your Condi Druid, for your DPS Condi Druid. You got burning, you got poison, right? All that kind of wonderful, wonderful stuff there. But you can't have this at the same time as giving Alacrity, which kind of makes sense, right? This is your full DPS option, as opposed to your Alacrity DPS option. And bear in mind, there are 3 damage traits on Druid now. So we have Blood Moon, which is replacing Primal Echoes. So this is basically gone from whenever you swap to your staff. Instead, it's just when you go in CA, you daze. And if you immobilize or CC someone, you apply bleeding. And of course, Druid has great access to dazes, because you go in CA, right? And you can also immobilize really easily, right? With a lot of your skills, a lot of your toolkit has that immob, so you're going to have a lot of bleeding access there as well, not only in CA because of Lunar Impact, right? Which will then, Lunar Impact with the DPS trait will immobilize and daze, which will probably double activate this trait, etc., etc. It's going to do a lot of Condi damage. To be clear, we don't necessarily know the tuning on this or exactly how it's going to pan out, but it certainly actually looks promising. I have to admit this. I was actually a little bit dubious about DPS Druid, but I actually think this is a pretty good implementation of it. It's quite exciting. Maybe one day they'll do the same thing for Scourge, right? I like the implementation. I think this is actually pretty cool. It's pretty exciting, in my opinion, for PvP. A lot of these Druid changes, I think, could actually really kind of push this support Druid or even hybrid Druid potential in PvP, which I think is really fun because Druid hasn't really existed. And whenever Druid has existed, it's been either decap, unfun, horrible build, or just like some really unfun, like Condi, Omega Immobilized, Ancient Seed stuff. So this actually, I think, moves Druid in a much healthier direction in competitive modes, and really opens up some fun options for PvE as well. I can definitely see a DPS Druid. I can definitely see a Condition Alacrity Druid. And I think Heal Druid is just like, oh yeah. Oh, yeah. Even like a hybrid, right? Like some kind of celestial build, right? So you're tanking, you're healing, you're doing a bit of Condi damage. Man, I think really exciting with this, especially with the utility it can bring to the table, because you've got stability, you've got Aegis, you can do prot, you can do might, you can do regen, like Giga Regen, you can do Alac, you can revive people, you can stun break people. Oh, man. Ranger is super exciting, I think, after this patch. So Ranger mains, you guys are eating well tonight. For basically every single build. And I'm not even done yet. We've got to do more. It isn't even over. That's right, guys. We've got to do Untamed. Okay, yeah. If the White Tiger was a bit smarter, it would be even better. Yeah. But anyway, we're not done. Untamed. So, I'll tell you the story. Untamed was weird. It was gimmicky, but you know what? It was awesome fun. Fervent Force, perma-resetting all of your cooldowns. It was epic. It was exciting. It was amazing. But it had to die, unfortunately, and ArenaNet bopped it pretty hard. Unlucky. You hate to see it. But now, the rework has happened. So, basically, some cooldowns are just going down in PvE to compensate for the lack of cooldown reduction. Rending Vines, Enveloping Haze, and also Unleash. You can unleash every 9 seconds in PvE. You can probably guess where we're going with this. But also, just flat damage buffs, Savage Laugh, Death Strike, Relentless Whirl, Multi-Shot. Basically, every single Unleash skill is getting significantly buffed in PvE. And what's all this about? Well, I'll tell you. Let Loose. This trait replaces Fervent Force, RIP. Grant boons to nearby allies when you're an Unleashed Ambush skill. Recharge your Unleashed Ambush skill when you swap weapons. And yep, you heard it here, guys. That is quickness for our Untainted. That is going to be quickness here. So, you're going to basically be blasting your Unleash skill. You could weapon swap, do it again, right? And then give more and more quickness, right? Etc, etc, etc. That is basically going to be your rotation. So you're kind of blasting away. I guess with Hammer, maybe Greatsword is being thrown in there as well. Whatever. We'll see what the numbers actually pan out there. But it looks like that's a build, right? And bear in mind, this isn't necessarily reliant on your utility skills. So this actually does give you a decent chunk of flexibility on what type of ability you might actually want to use on your Untamed. So you can probably bring some decent utility. You probably won't have the... You won't have the best... Yeah, it could be sword as well, right? You might not necessarily have the best boon access in the universe, but Untamed definitely does have some pretty interesting skills, and of course brings some very robust crowd control to the table if it wants to. Not quite as much with Fervent Force, of course, but it's definitely still there. This is certainly a build, right? This is a build. Yeah, like Hammer, Sword, Axe, something like that, right? Like, I can imagine some kind of build like this. Right, Hammer, Sword, Axe going crazy, pumping, blasting, right? Could be, honestly, a lot of fun. I think this might end up being quite nice for the Untamed mains, because I think they've really done a good job of trying to keep it fast-paced, right? Really cutting down these cooldowns, so you want to have this kind of fast-paced blast style, right? Unleash, like weapon swapping, you unleash again, boom, get it done, 9-second cooldown. You got to manage this cooldown and really kind of go crazy. So I think this will keep this high-paced, high-octane style that I think a lot of players really enjoyed about Untamed, while also really giving it that kind of robust role in PvE with that DPS quickness position that it's a bit competitive right now, so I'm not sure if we're going to see like this build being busted. We'll see how much damage it does, I guess, because I think it will hit pretty hard, I think. I kind of have a suspicion it will do quite a lot of DPS, but anyway, that's the news. Good news, Untamed mains. Finally, Untamed has found its home, maybe. One other thing that's notable here, by the way, is that all of these changes I think add up quite nicely in PvP as well. Now, bear in mind, Untamed is already quite nifty in PvP, but hey, let loose, you can double ambush. Ambush is big in PvP. You wreck people with these skills. It's a really key part of your damage output. And now, ooh, let loose. It does compete with a pretty nice trait, the symbiosis trait, so you get some more damage in PvP right now, but double ambush is some serious blast, actually, with this. Really, really tasty. And, of course, there's some potential weapons that could be useful here as well, right? You can lock down your opponent with some very swift leaps with your sword, whack them with that greatsword, potentially, and then hit them with these brutal ambush attacks and chain them together effectively, like comboing those two things. There's some real potential for Ranger, I think. And bear in mind, Ranger is already pretty damn good in PvP right now, so some more options and some more exciting things as well to come for our Rangers. And yeah, I think I already mentioned this, but yeah, Teamfight Druid, Heal Druid in PvP. Oh, lot of cool stuff happening. I honestly can't wait to see how this is actually going to develop in all of the game modes for PvP, World of Sword, and also PvE as well. Guys, I love it. It's so good. It is. This is some big gaming here, guys. This is big gaming. I love to see it. Ah, man. Oof. Exciting. If only we all got as many patch notes as Ranger, guys. If only that happened. Okay? If only that happened. Goodness me. But we can't all be Ranger. You know, like, ArenaNet loves Ranger. CMC is a Ranger main. Also, Restorative Strikes got changed a little bit. This trait was a bit meh, honestly, since day one, to be fair, wasn't it? This trait no longer passively converts strike damage to healing, and it instead converts strike damage to healing when you or your pet unleash. Increase the protection duration from 2 to 3 seconds. I like that I'm making it a bit more active rather than just like a pretty boring meh passive. So that's really fun. And I imagine the conversion is going to be really high, actually. Because again, it's like an active, probably short duration thing. Right? So it's going to be like, if you land your unleash, it might heal you massive, like really significantly. So I like that. I am really happy to see that kind of across the board, and certainly with Ranger, they're making all of the Grandmaster traits big. You know, I think that these traits being very impactful and really kind of exotic, right? And changing up how it works. I love that. You know, Lingering Light compared to Eclipse, compared to Grace of the Land. These are all totally different playstyles that get enabled from this, right? And I love that. That is, in my opinion, I'm a big fan of that from a Grandmaster trait design. I remember being so disappointed with a lot of the GM traits with Ender Dragons, looking at Harbinger going like, oh, it's literally the same trait, but it's like a slightly different effect. It doesn't change the gameplay in any way. This is what traits should be. Traits should massively impact your gameplay and give you a different flavor of the class that you're playing, right? And this is really nice. I love the design on this. Is how different these traits will make the elite spec play, right? You know, and we see it with Untamed too. Let Loose is going to be really different to play than, say, Restorative Strikes or Symbiosis, right? Like, these are very different effects that they'll have and will significantly alter like how you actually play your build. So big fan of this design overall, and I think very good news for all of our Ranger mains in all of our game modes, I think, actually. But there it is. That is Ranger. Okay, now it's Thief time. Here we go. Thief. So this is actually one of the... I feel like Thief has been in such a strange spot for a long time. It's been good, but kind of weird at the same time. So it's the builds maybe have been kind of annoying to play. They've been somewhat niche, a bit situational, right? You know, it's been strange sometimes. Like, you've got this single target thing going on there. However, look what we've done here. We've made some things more consistent. We've added Quickness Deadeye in a really fun way. Honestly, it makes me laugh. I love it. I love the way I did this. I'm not sure if I think it's super good design, but it does amuse me, and I give them some points for that. So we'll get to that first, probably. Specter is now AoE around the target, which is really cool. That's kind of what I was expecting them to do, kind of like have the AoE kind of like splash around your allied target. But anyway, let's get into it, and we'll do Deadeye first, actually. So Quickness Deadeye is now, I just love this. Check this out. We're introducing a quickness build for Deadeye. Fire for effect will cause every stolen skill to become steal time. They were like, listen, we're just gonna make it so you get a random stolen skill in PvE. Well, how about maybe you don't? How about you always get the same one, and it's always gonna be steal time every single time in PvP. So that's right, gamers. You can now be a time thief. Huge RP, guys. You are a time thief. And essentially, your rotation is going to evolve essentially spamming your mark to get that stolen skill, using cantrips to generate more as well. Because you'll always get steal time from using a cantrip, using... where's the trait, actually? It's... one in the chamber, right? So you use a cantrip, you get a random stolen skill, but it will always be steal time. So you can combo that with your Shadow Flare, for example, to generate that. And then you just spam out your steal time, and then away you go. It's worth knowing that basically for the purposes of PvE, they also made one in the chamber make cantrips do 300% more damage, so that it's not like a brutal DPS loss after be having this like downtime in your rotation, basically. So you're going to be pumping pretty hard with this, giving a lot of quickness at the same time, and also notably, it's going to be Might and Fury too, which is a solid package for a hyper-aggressive quickness build. I think this is where I see the Deadeye quickness build. It's going to be your glass cannon quickness build, right? So Might, Fury, quickness, boom, and significant damage output attached to this. Of course, it won't do as much damage as the other Thief builds, right? There is that trade-off with picking this trait and also using loads of stolen skills. But bear in mind, you know, you're also, you know, you're giving that quickness out time. You've got slow on the boss, which is actually somewhat relevant, right? Like, slow is good CC, actually, just to have that up. It will be basically permanent uptime or very high uptime of slow, I think. Or at least when you need it anyway. I think this build actually has some potential. It's going to be one of those builds that you might not see very often, to be honest, because in general, the builds that typically do well are the less glass cannon-y, more supporty ones, like your Herald, like your Firebrand, like your Scrapper, right? But this is by no... I think this really has potential, right? It's going to hit hard. It's going to give all of the offensive boons. Never underestimate the value of being able to give a huge amount of might stacks, especially if you have a little bit of boon duration. You probably won't need much duration, I think, to make this build actually operate, I think. But yeah, there's certainly some potential for this build. And if you are a Deadeye fan and you want to have a slightly support-oriented setup, I really think that this is going to work out for you pretty nicely, actually. Again, we do have to see how the numbers actually work out, if it's going to, how hard it's going to pump. But, I mean, Deadeye hits pretty hard, so it should be good. It is worth noting that they did actually change how Shadow Flare works. It's quite interesting, actually. They changed the way that works. You use the skill, it does damage once when you use it, and if you use it again, it will damage it again. You reactivate it, so teleport back to it, in other words, and then it will do damage again. So a bit weird. You almost have to, like, kind of double tap it to get the damage value there. A little bit strange, but that's basically how it goes at your original location, right? So you Shadow Step, and then you go back. Okay, fair enough. It is what it is, guys. It is what it is. It is a thing that has been added to the game. Binding Shadow actually got nerfed. Cooldown goes down from 30 to 20 seconds in PvE and from 30 to 25 in competitive. The skill now immobilizes instead of knocking them down. This skill is the most one of the most putrid skills in the entire game in PvP. Okay? Look at this piece of shit. Look at it. It immobilizes you, poisons, 15 vuln, removes 2 boons, and was a 3-second knockdown. Okay? Disgusting. Actually, disgusting ability. Man, this was unfun to play against. Oh my god, it was unfun to play against. So I... and these type of changes try to make the game a bit healthier. Yeah, it's 1200 range, by the way. Yeah, like... like, these type of changes, I think, really help make a build like Deadeye potentially a little bit more healthy in competitive modes. It gives ArenaNet a bit more room to make Deadeye better, I think, overall. Deadeye's not super great. I know there's a lot of projectile block, but changing it so the immobilize isn't guaranteed. You've got to actually have the... you've got to get the mark, right, in order to do that, right? So it won't immobilize by default, right? You have to have that mark on them. This is a really, really good change, in my opinion. I guess PvE kind of gets caught in the crossfire here. You don't have that 3-second knockdown if you wanted to use this ability, but honestly, it's worth it, right? Like, it's, yeah. Screw that ability. That one's not good, right? I don't like it. Okay. So let's talk about the weird stuff next. Specifically Daredevil. Daredevil in PvE is a nightmare because it's basically been balanced around its stolen skills for years. Okay, stolen skills are busted. Magnetic Bomb, busted. Ecto, busted. Right, etc., 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 right? And those have actually been normalized a lot. So Plasma does damage, doesn't give quickness. Magnetic Bomb, damage goes down. Unstable Reagent, damage goes up. Cursed Artifact, the damage is going down a little bit, and Time at a Bottle, it's also going down. So, essentially, a lot of these skills are kind of being normalized, right? To make it so that Thief isn't either like God level, essentially, or complete trash, or no, I should not. No, that's exaggerating, or quite mediocre, right? Or a bit weird, or not super great. Specifically, Power Daredevil was affected by this, I think, a little bit more than Condi Daredevil. Condi Daredevil was definitely a good build in its own right. But I think this really helps normalize it out, and it gives ArenaNet room to buff, which they have done now. And yeah, before we get into the buffs, it is worth noting that apparently it's a bit weird. I'm being told that the rotation for Thief, or optimal damage rotation, is do the first 2 auto attacks, then weakening charge. So cancel your 3rd auto attack, then use a weakening charge, and you rinse and repeat that process while keeping up your bound, which, I'm not gonna lie, if that makes it to live, I will actually be surprised if, you know, if the math checks out on that and it turns out that that is indeed true. I mean, the nerds have run the numbers. I definitely trust them. They know what they're talking about. But that is a disaster, to be honest. Like, that is, like, borderline unplayable unless you're incredibly tryhard, right? To be honest. But it's really good to see them improving the damage on bound, so the dodge is very high value. You get a massive burst on your dodge, and you also get your damage modifier there at the same time. But Thief is super hard to deal with. Like, Thief is really hard to balance because of initiative, right? Thief is also very modifier heavy, so you might go, wait, 1.0 power coefficient? That doesn't even seem that good. Well, it turns out it's really good when you modify that damage, like, insanely by having critical strikes and so on, right? And just having a million modifiers, and you have your dodge modifier too. So Thief, really hard to balance, and I think we aren't there yet, to be honest, specifically the power Daredevil. Thief is just weird because it kind of incentivizes you to spam your strongest skill over and over again because you don't have cooldowns. You have initiative instead, and I don't know. There needs to be some more changes here, I think, to make this build a little bit more sane and less unhinged to play. It's already a strange one that's got a lot of animation locking in it, right? A lot of auto attacking, right? Very reliant on the encounter. It's still a little bit tricky, right? It's a little bit of a tricky meme, to be honest here. And in general, here's some other changes to Daredevil. Basically, physical skills, you get the cooldown baseline already. So there you go. It's baseline right off the bat. So now, these are already some pretty good skills, by the way. Impairing Daggers that she did see play, Banished Defense, and Channeled Vigor, already pretty robust skills. So having the cooldown reduction kind of baked in is pretty nice right off the bat. Because, in particular, I believe that trait slot for Daredevil is actually pretty competitive, if I am not mistaken. Yeah, I think that is indeed true. Yeah, like Marauder's Resilience, for example, is a good trait. Right off the bat, alongside Escapist Fortitude. It's pretty competitive, actually, and that means that now... Actually, I feel like this trait ends up being pretty bad, to be honest, as a result of that, compared to the others. The other ones are pretty damn good. This one, I think, is pretty mediocre at this point, so it might need a little bit of a rework. Might be one of those ones that needs a little bit of a touch-up to make it more compelling down the line. But that's basically it for Daredevil. Acrobatics. Okay, here's another trait line rework. I mean, I told you guys this patch was big. I told you guys. This is pretty big stuff. Ah, yes. So, improvisation. I guess that's not acrobatics. This is improvisation. This trait now reduces the cooldown of all utility skills by a certain percentage when you steal, instead of recharging a random skill. I'm not gonna lie. This is just a better design, right? Because random utility skill is just weird. Okay, like it was gimmicky, it's insanely swingy, ultra high variance. Sounds, oh, yep, I recharged the right one. Now I instantly win. Do you guys remember? Wait, didn't this used to recharge like Dagger Storm as well? Man, it was fucking putrid. Like, oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, it was absolutely unhinged. Like, I remember the Thief used to be so disgusting, man. You get like double Dagger Storm. Oh man. Oh. But yeah, this kind of stuff is just so swingy. This is much better design. And I think will actually be really fun to use, because now you can actually utilize your steel to just use your abilities faster and faster and faster, all that kind of wonderful stuff there as well. And there's some synergy here, by the way, with acrobatics, right? And they really want to kind of lean into this like mega Daredevil, like super speedster style. Because look, Swindler's Equilibrium now recharges steel by 1 second per trigger, so whenever you successfully evade. So if you get a lot of evade, you can be spamming your steel really hard, and then potentially, of course, then recharging all of your other skills really quickly as well. And we kind of see that throughout acrobatics here. Their stated goal was to basically not like make you perma evade, but make your evades very impactful, right? So in other words, using your evades in an intelligent way gives you some really nice output. So on Endless Stamina, whenever you use a movement skill or a shadow step, you get more damage, right? Whenever you do a dodge roll, you remove a damaging condition on pain response. You gain resistance when you use a movement skill on guarded initiation. So in Equilibrium, whenever you get an evade, you also get yourself a cooldown reduction on steel by 1 second. So intelligently using your evasion skills will be rewarded, my friends. And I think a lot of this stuff is kind of aimed at Sword Dagger Thief, right? Because Sword Dagger Thief has this Sword 2 ability that allows you to port back and forward a lot, therefore activating a lot of these abilities, getting your extra damage, right? Getting your resistance uptime a lot there, all of that kind of good stuff. I almost feel like this is potentially leaning towards like a Core Thief build, actually, weirdly enough, because Daredevil already has this ability to break out of Immobilize, break out of these snare conditions, whereas Acrobatics now can ignore them by using movement skills and by using evasion to do that. It's kind of interesting. There is a Core SD Thief that I believe exists in a world versus world context and is playable, and I'm very interested to see how this actually kind of plays out with that type of build there as well. Yeah, pretty good. But yeah, resistance is a powerful boon because bear in mind that means you are immune to conditions that reduce your damage output as well, as the chat has said, by blind and weakness, which are both. They're a danger, guys. They are a threat. Yeah, removing the passive stuff on pain response. Wasn't this like a 300-second trait? I think it's like a 60-second trait, actually, in PvP. But one of the last passives being deleted out of existence there. We'd love to see that. Not sure if this really exists in PvE so much. I think this is mostly kind of targeted at PvP and world versus world. In this kind of regard there as well. But there you go. That is that for our Thief kind of baseline and also Daredevil and Deadeye. On to, I guess, kind of the main event. We've got ourselves a pretty significant Specter rework here. So, number one, allied targeted Scepter skills now also grant a lesser effect to additional allies in the radius around the target. So, that's kind of fun, right? That means you can give AoE Barrier, you're going to be able to give AoE Might, right? All of that kind of stuff. Quite nicely there. I guess even, technically speaking, a little bit of AoE quickness, maybe? Maybe it won't give the quickness, right, on the Scepter 3. I think they've learned from that mistake, I think. Fairly safe to say, but yeah, we'll see how this comes. We need to actually see, like, what this was. Don't think we really got a demo on this. Okay, we got no demo. In fact, yeah, you know what? We can call out Roy for this. Do you know why we got no demo, guys? Because Roy left the map. Okay, the map closed on their test server, and they had Golem set up to test it. And you know what? The map closed. So you know what? You can blame Roy or CMC. They blamed Trig, one of the new devs on the team. You know, you hate to see that. I don't know what they kind of ganged up on poor old Trig, but it is what it is. Maybe they're all at fault. Maybe none of them are at fault. But either way, we did not see a demo of that. We'll have to wait until we actually get into the game for that. But we've got some other things happening here as well. Let's take a look, okay, of what is actually happening here. Let's do the big stuff. Shade Step. This trait has been reworked. It now spreads the beneficial effect of your Shadow Shroud skills to allies around your tethered target. It additionally grants boons to yourself and those allies when you use a Shadow Shroud skill. And that, by the way, means Alacrity. So using your Shroud skills will now be your Alacrity application on your Specter, which, again, guys, no more well spam. What I really like about this is we can use our heal skill appropriately. We can use our stability appropriately on our Well of Bounty, right? We can use, say, our CC and condition application whenever we want to, and just kind of not worry about hitting allies with it to give those boons. Nice. Nice. I don't mind this. I think this has some real potential. And bear in mind, guys, some of the boons that you get, you gain stability. In Shroud, remember? You have the 5th skill, it will give stability after a while. So I presume this means you actually can give AoE stability using Shade Step, both on, say, a heal Specter, but also on a condition damage Alacrity Specter as well. Now, you are obviously going to eat a little bit of a DPS hit for taking Shade Step, but you don't need Traversing Dusk anymore. So you can actually kind of compensate a bit. I'm not unhinged, right? I'm just going to quickly check just to make sure I'm not a complete idiot. This means we can go ahead and take Larcenous Torment, I believe, on, say, a condition damage alacrity build. So you can kind of compensate for not having Strength of Shadows a little bit. So we can mix things up a little bit there, and that will work out a little bit better for us. So you're not going to get completely shafted by giving alacrity, as you might expected yourself to do. So we're not actually doomed there. So the good news is, this build, I think, is really compelling, because now this is like a flat buff, basically, to Alacrity Specter and Heal Alac Specter. Not sure if Heal Alac Specter is there yet, guys. I hate to say it. Let's not get overexcited right now. I still think the boon access on Heal Alac Specter is very mediocre. To be honest, it's not that good. The AoE barrier is really nice. Like, AoE stability is going to be good. Being able to use your heal skill appropriately is good. Being able to apply the stability from Well of Bounty is going to be good. Not totally convinced. And I do have to say, there is one thing that I do want to complain about a little bit here for my Thief gamers. I do still think that the wells are not that much fun to use. Okay? Yeah. They are kind of annoying, okay? They have pretty long cast times. They lock you in place. They teleport you. I don't really like them that much, okay? It is not that much fun whatsoever. So, yeah. It is what it is. I definitely think Wells need another look. Maybe even some, like, more redesign-oriented stuff. I kind of don't like what they did with Well of Silence. Well of Silence... They made it only pulse a CC once, and then remove condies. I kind of like that skill in PvE. I think it was more of a change aimed at World versus World, but still. This definitely starts the road of making kind of support Spectre a thing in World versus World. However, I really don't think we're there yet. Like, we'll need multiple more patches to get into the mix. But the good news is you can slap on more of your Thief utility, right, on your support Spectre builds, right? You can very easily go ahead and take, say, Shas if you wanted some mobility. You can go ahead and take more Venoms, right, for more damage output. All that kind of good stuff. So there's some good potential, I think, for Thief to really have some of these utility skill choices actually fleshed out quite nicely, in my opinion, when you're playing specifically like the Alac DPS build. Like the Alacrity DPS build, I think has got some pretty big energy on that now. It's already a very strong build, great CC, solid damage output, a bit of support. And now we kind of have a little bit more support potential kind of baked into that, like with this slightly new setup there. It'll be very cool, I think. So overall, you know, it's not perfect. And I think we've got a bit more work to do. But you know what? If I was a Thief main, I do like Spectre, actually, I'll take that. You know, I'll definitely take it. You know, this is pretty cool stuff. A few other little changes here as well. Second Opinion, you know, again, condition damage instead of healing power when equipped when wielding a scepter, so you can get a bit more damage output if you take this minor trait. I think the other two are much more support-oriented, so this kind of gives you an aggressive option for your adept trait. This is the first trait, I believe, that competes with Shallow Grave and the barrier conversion one, so you can get a bit more damage in, or you can opt to have that barrier application when you leave Shroud, if you want to go in that direction. And then Shallow Grave. This one's been reworked. To be honest, yeah, this one kind of had to be reworked here. Taking damage in Shroud, no Alac. Well, hey, time to dodge. Just dodge, noobs. If the ally... Yeah, so basically now this now transfers condies to a targeted enemy or removes condies from the Spectre and their targeted ally. Pretty interesting, actually. So you can transfer your condies with your Siphon now onto your enemy there. Really disgusting. That's going to be a lot of fun. You can cast that very frequently, of course, and you can really purge a lot of conditions from your allies. Kind of a support tool there as well. I can't wait to transfer and immobilize onto the enemy commander in World vs. World. It's going to be a lot of fun. That is a good shout, though, on the taking damage on the Alac. And if you take damage in Shroud, you lose potential to apply Alacrity. That is definitely a potential usability issue that may have to be addressed. With any luck, the duration is pretty hefty, so that you can, you can kind of pre-stack it. So in case you do get knocked out, then you may do it. But bear in mind, guys, you do charge up Shroud crowd pretty damn fast on Specter. So even if you do miss some of it, you're probably going to be able to recover pretty well, especially if you overcap, right? I imagine the numbers will be tuned such that you can overcap and overboon people pretty well. I think it's also worth noting that you'll also be able to give Might on Heal Specter with Shadow Sap. Although, it is a bit weird. You're going to have this trade-off with using these different initiative skills and what you want to do. But, I don't know. There you go. That's the deal with Thief. That's how it is. Here we go. Thief, having a good time. So, I would say a pretty good time if you are a medium class enjoyer. I absolutely love to see it. But I don't know. You guys tell me. How mad are you? Tell me how mad you are about your main getting nerfed. Okay, that's it for those. No, not Twitter. Anything but that.